Welcome to the Gospel According to, the first and only podcast looking at the intersection of pop culture and the Christian faith. I am Dave Hallahan, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host. And you may know him as the only guy on the soccer team who can't touch his toes. It's Dan Ulrich.
That is me. I've been called a lot of things. Flexible is not one of them.
You're physically incapable.
I don't know. I think my legs are longer than my arms. I have a very short wingspan. That's why I haven't been drafted in the NBA yet.
Undrafted again.
Yeah, once again, I went undrafted. But yeah, my wingspan is kind of short, and I got really tight hamstrings. So those things combined, it's hard for me to touch my toes.
Poor guy. Now, flexible is something this guy has been called. Our guest today, we're joined by another special guest coming to us from Wilmore, Kentucky. And you may know him as the lead guitarist and vocalist of the early 2000s worship band, Why Son. It's brother of the pod, Josh Hallahan.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Glad to be here. I also cannot touch my toes. So I'm with you, Dan.
You guys. I mean, it takes me like a little bit to warm up, but I can like stand on my hands.
Yeah. Well, that's really easy for you to say. Why don't you prove it?
We have video. You want me to? We have more important things to get to today.
It sounds like somebody that can't touch their toes would say that.
That's fair. That's fair. So, Josh, you are my brother. I'm sorry.
True.
That wasn't really my decision, though. So,
Yep.
Who are you other than that? What are you doing with your life these days?
Yeah, so I am here in Wilmore, work with a group called the Francis Asbury Society. Sounds a lot more.
Sounds fancy.
Secret society.
Yeah, we're not a secret society. Specifically doing discipleship ministry alongside churches, other ministry groups. Kelly, my wife, we do some student ministry on the campus at Asbury. Also doing some ministry in the public schools here in Kentucky. So yeah, married to Kelly, 4 kids. We were missionaries in Uganda. On a previous pod, I was interviewed about. I forget. We talked about Back to the Future a little bit, but
yeah, because you like Back to the Future 3 the best.
I do like Back to the Future 3,
which is
true story.
Just the wrongest take. But again, more important things to talk about than that today. Josh, I think you're actually like Dan is right in between both of us. Right. I think he's 2 years older than me, 2 years younger than you. Do you have any memories that stand out of Dan in youth group?
Well, you mentioned Why Son,
yeah,
our worship band. Dan, I'm trying to get us a slot at Revival. I don't know if we can come out with it.
Or Spam.
If we can get the band together, maybe we can do a set.
Yeah.
So I think what my favorite memories of Dan is when we were I don't know if we were Why Son at the time or Spam, but playing at the old church across the street. I mean, Dan is a fabulous drummer, but there were a few times when we would go fast or too slow. You know, the tempo was changing, and I just remember many times kind of giving Dan the side eye.
The back look.
Like, what are you doing? No. So, and then just all the videos, Dan, I think I heard you say it once before, Dan, but you were born too early. You would be viral now if you were born a few years later.
Yeah, missed out on that YouTube money.
Yeah, you led the charge. You paved the way for me.
Well, Josh, you were a part. I think this was when I was too young to be friends with Dan, but I feel like you were a part of it, Josh. The like progressive peanut butter and jelly sandwich or whatever.
That is the video I'm thinking of currently now.
Yes.
We stumbled. We found it somehow.
You posted it, didn't you?
I
somehow
did, and it hasn't gone viral. I don't know why.
Go figure. And I'm one of your little brothers.
Yes.
Do you have any embarrassing stories you want to tell the people about me?
Oh man, this wasn't on my notes to think
I
of.
know. I'm like, right before we started recording, I'm like, Josh, I sent you everything I'm going to ask you. Start off the bat with 2 questions I did not have on there at all.
Um, well, my favorite story that I tell, actually, I don't know about Dustin if he did sleepwalking, but at least the bottom 3 of us have some pretty good sleepwalking stories.
Yeah.
So the classic Dave story is that in the middle of the night he was sleeping in a different room that night, but kind of got up and did his bathroom walk that he's used to doing in the night, and ended up peeing in the trash can while my mom and another lady were sitting at the dining room table. So that is a favorite. That's a favorite story.
Yeah, which I think Miss Heidi, our neighbor, being there was only happened one time, but I think I peed in the trash can more than once. I'm pretty sure that's a two-time event that happened. Yeah, my
you don't have to walk all the way to the toilet; it's right there.
yeah. I would, because my normal like walk from my room at the time was basically a U-turn to the bathroom. But however old I was still at the age where I would go into my parents' room if I was like scared or whatever at night.
16 years old.
Yeah. I think it was last week. I think
it's a much longer walk now.
Yeah. But I slept in their room, and the U-turn took me to the trash can, which also has a lid. So seemed like it would work. But yeah, we were. I'm glad that didn't carry over into adulthood. Certainly the peeing in trash cans, but more like just the sleepwalking in general is good. So none of those things, as you already mentioned, are on the questions I was going to ask you, but also not the reason why we asked you to come on today. For those who haven't been paying attention, there's stuff happening at Asbury University and Asbury Theological Seminary. Revival is the main word that is being used to describe what's going on. Certainly other people are choosing other words to use or whatever, but something is happening that's capturing a lot of attention, and sounds like a lot of good things are happening. But for those, you're right there. You can see Asbury from your backyard, and you're very involved with the students there. So why don't you just tell us kind of how did all this begin, and where are we with it now?
Sure. So it was a week ago today. So Asbury gathers Monday, Wednesday, Fridays for chapel. Their scheduled chapel times 10 to 11. They are semi-required, meaning that students have to attend a certain number of them. And so Wednesday last week was, their regular scheduled chapel service. A preacher or a pastor, he is at a church or something ministry in Lexington, Kentucky. He's a semi-regular, at least once or twice a semester. They invite him to come and preach. He has become a friend of many on campus and is discipling some guys. He's been on retreats, all those things. So he was a normal chapel service. I was hearing him talk about how he felt that morning, and he said, I didn't share anything. I didn't think anything special was happening as he preached. In fact, he said he got to kind of the end and looking at the time and realizing he had to be done, and kind of just real quick wrapped it up. With the caveat, and this happens a lot, of saying, if you need to go to class, you're dismissed. You're free to go. If you want to go, you can go. But if you want to stay behind and pray, seek the Lord, the band will. It was our gospel band was leading worship that day. They'll just play a couple more songs for us. And people left. I actually went. I was supposed to meet a professor right after chapel, which his office is underneath the chapel, and he wasn't there. And I walked up to the chapel as they're dismissing, and again, just felt very normal. Like the vast majority of people were leaving chapel that day. Probably around 1:00, I saw something posted online that students are still meeting, that they're worshiping, they're praying, and I don't remember the words that were used, but like something special was happening, and students were starting to come back to chapel. So those messages I kept seeing more and more of them. I had a couple other things to do in the afternoon. Finally, around 4:00, I got to go back over there. So I walk up. There's a balcony on 3 sides of the auditorium there, and so I just walked up to the balcony and took a seat. And yeah, it was not quite half full of students and staff. The band, I don't know if it was still the same band or if they had switched by then or not, but there was some music playing and just students praying, just crying out to God. In at the altar. The altar was kind of flooded, but then also in pockets around Hughes Auditorium, and that continued. And people. So on Wednesday evening, by then, kind of the two Asburys, Asbury Seminary and Asbury University, word is spreading, and so people are just coming.
Right.
And the only thing I can say is that when you walked in, you felt this extra presence of God in the room. There was something special going on. Very peaceful, very calm. Um, that's the best way to describe it. And there would be times of some students wanting to share testimony of what God was doing, what God was saying to them, uh, and then just times of worship. And that just continued through the night and overnight. I did not stay overnight Wednesday. By Thursday, they're still meeting. The leaders, so the pastor who preached, he's staying behind. We have a spiritual life team. They're kind of overseeing it. They're praying together, and then also, God, what do you want us to do? And just leading very nicely. I mean, God's leading it, but they're kind of just overseeing the thing, right? By Thursday, more of the community is coming out to see what's happening. A lot of the students are there. The place is getting full. So that's all day Thursday, overnight, Friday, into Friday. And then probably around Saturday, a switch. I would say a switch happened. We're all kind of starting to use that word and talk about it because word has spread, and so now more and more people are beginning to flood in,
Right.
that are not Wilmore or the immediate area. And the same thing is happening to these people, new people who are coming in, that God is just getting a hold of their hearts. They're praying. So we're having times of repentance and confession, declaring forgiveness over one another, very prolonged times of just singing and worshiping, where again, some are just standing there worshiping, some are getting in huddles and praying together. Always someone, I think since Wednesday, there's always been someone at the altar praying. But the crowd is becoming different, a different group of people. I would think probably Saturday night was the first time that we're like, wow, this is it's like getting out of hand, not in like the crazy way, but like this is just something different
Right.
is happening because the crowds are getting bigger and bigger. So that goes into Sunday. So now where we're at now, and all of this kind of blurs together, but where we're at now, there are currently, I just left campus, there are probably 100 people lined up trying to get into Hughes Auditorium. There are two chapels across the street at the seminary that, when available, are used for overflow, and they very quickly fill up. There's the Methodist church in town has two sanctuaries because there's actually two churches that meet in the building. They've opened up their large one as a fourth overflow. So the past 3 evenings, we've had 4 buildings, which if you count all the seats, you're looking close to 4,000 or 5,000
Right.
seats. They're full of people.
Yeah.
And then there's people outside of Hughes Auditorium. There's, it's a big staircase going up. There's a screen out there. I think that started last night with speakers, and 1,000 people maybe standing out there. And then the last thing I'll say, and you can ask me some follow-up questions, is Asbury University as a whole, they have not really canceled classes. Some professors are canceling classes here and there. They're living in the tension of continuing the academic program that all these students are paying a lot of money for, while also hosting and trying to steward well what God
Right.
is doing here. And so they're carrying on in classes. I think today was the first day they had chapel, where they you had to be 25 and under to get into chapel. They're asking those from the outside, they're asking them to
Yeah.
step out for that hour, and allowing space for the students. And also, if there's other college students from other campuses around the country, they're welcome to come in as well. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah. So I mean, this was a totally like unorchestrated event.
100%.
And it just happened organically. Um,
Mhm.
so how has I've heard some stuff like through online and whatnot, um, about the that the like faculty and administration of Asbury has tried their best as this has grown to like keep it f- focused or for the students,
Mhm.
and like student led. How have you seen kind of that work
Sure.
its way out?
Sure. So there are about six, I would say, of our faculty and staff who are kind of spearheading this thing, and they're building the plane as we fly,
Right. Yeah.
building the structures for this while uh, I mean, they're continually praying together while seeking the Lord on what's the next step, right? So Asbury has, a handful of student worship bands, worship teams. So there's one of the staff is kind of organizing, can you play for 2-3 hours, on this day, kind of, letting the students continue to lead us in that way in worship. And so they're kind of on rotation throughout the day. There is a prayer team has been created, which I'm part of the prayer team, and so we broke out the lanyards, so like the official prayer people can wear lanyards, and that was like because we want people to trust that when they come, that not that we're like super spiritual or anything, but um, create that safeguard of these are people that Asbury trusts to pray with you. Um, and it's not just someone from the outside who's going to try and come and co-opt this or do their own thing. So there's this prayer team that is always 24/7. There are some of us available to do that. Trying to think, and then there's kind of the ones who will kind of discern. Is it time for us to read scripture together? Is it time for us to give testimonies? Is it time to just sit in silence? There have been moments where we're just like, we need to be quiet and we just need to listen. And then there's been a few times, there's not a ton of like, we're going to sit down and there's going to be a preacher for, a half hour or whatever. But there have been times where, one of them has said, God's given them a word and they'll share for a few minutes a sermon. I think probably the longest sermon I heard was last night. One of the leaders preached for a little bit. So
Yeah. Um, I know when I like first saw that this was coming up, I'm in New Jersey. I guess I have somewhat of a unique, we all have unique perspectives, but having like a brother who's there, I had certain thoughts about it and stuff. But Dan, I'm curious, like as you have kind of been seeing this and followed it, what, if anything, has like your response or thought process about it been like, oh, that's cool and just move on, or have you like wrestled with what is going on there?
Yeah, I think there's, you know, this podcast we've talked about, there's a natural, uh, Dave and I are skeptical of things sometimes. So it's, in the beginning, it was like, oh, these kids just want to get out of class. Like, that makes sense. I'd rather worship than go to class too. But no, I think there's this excitement. Like, people in my church, we have connections to Asbury, but multiple people came up to me after service and were like, did you hear what's happening in Asbury? Do you see what's happening in Asbury? And I think there's just this flow of excitement about God on the move and people connecting with that in a way that's unpredictable,
Yeah.
wasn't wasn't something being expected, and just kind of like I've been saying at my church, like with some things, like I just don't want to get in the way. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that. I'm sure there's a sense of that with you, Josh, of like,
sure.
I want to try and like, contain this fire in some way, like move, but like I don't want to get in the way of like snuffing it out.
Right.
And I know for me, like I don't know if either of you were at the camp meeting the one year. It's
Yeah,
like
I was there.
2003. There was there was I was I don't know, freshman in high school, and the same kind of a similar thing happened at our camp meeting experience where it was just like I didn't want the worship to stop, and it was
Right.
like praying, people were sharing and stuff, and then the leaders of camp kind of stopped it. I mean, they're in charge of things like that, and I think that can be. I think we can get in the way that way,
Yeah.
where if you're not experiencing something that other people are experiencing, it could have been very easy for you or like another administrative person to come up at the end of service to be like an hour afterwards, I'm not feeling this. Okay, there's a couple of people. All right, get to class, guys. All right, chapel's over, get to class.
Yeah.
And um and there's that tension, like you said, of like I want to I don't want to get in the way of what God's doing. And so I
Mhm.
think there's that excitement uh of what God's doing. I think there's that intrigue as to like you were sharing some of the specifics. I think from outsiders we're kind of, there's that, well, what actually is going, like, how are they doing this? Like, what is going on? What,
Yeah,
in the middle of the night,
what
who's
are
the,
the logistics?
it's like,
Yeah.
kind of know, what happens if the toilet overflows? Like, where are we going? Like, and they come in. Yeah. So, yeah, I think just overall kind of excitement to see what God is doing, and that we shouldn't be, surprised, because this isn't the first time that it's happened at Asbury. This isn't the
Mhm.
first time it's happened other places.
Right.
That I think
Right.
when we get enough people collected that are seeking after God,
Mhm.
uh, and that He's there, and there's an awakening that can happen when we let go
Right.
of ourselves and we seek after Him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, and I shared some of this with Josh already, but um, like for me, so it actually Wednesday, Riley, my oldest daughter, got sick with like the stomach bug. By Thursday, Leah was down with the stomach bug, and like I'm left fending for myself and my two other daughters and trying to take care of them. And it's kind of like in times where I probably shouldn't be on my phone, but I am anyway, seeing what's happening down in Asbury. And my first like vibe was like was a skepticism, or that like quickly turned into like I think a cynicism of like, one, like, why, okay, if this is happening there, cool, but like keep it to yourself. Like, why is this why is this even online? And then like a jealousy of like, why do they get this and I'm stuck in my house with puking people? Like that's
Right.
not cool.
Yeah.
um and then like by Friday night, when I was like sitting in that and like being like, this isn't fair. They, not that you guys don't deserve this, but more I don't deserve what I have. Like I want what they have and not what I'm
Right.
getting. Um,
Right.
God like really, I think, met me in that moment and convicted me that, and reminded me that Tuesday of that week at the young adults meeting at our church, the like main point of our gathering for young adults was like, where we landed was that God is always present and always
Mm.
working
Right.
everywhere. And that like was a challenging but also like refreshing thought, that the God who is doing this thing in Asbury is also the God who is sustaining me and my family in this moment.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so that's like that's been my journey from afar with like the skepticism and cynicism. But how, on the ground, either you personally, like how has
Mhm.
that kind of played out in your own mind? And as you've talked with students or people who have come from the outside, like what are the stories that you're hearing of? Because I'm sure even those who are there, there has been doubt of like, what is this, to, oh, it's this. So what are
Right.
the stories either that you've experienced personally or that you've heard from others?
Yeah, sure. I will say, just for me personally, and probably not in the best of ways, I tend to be a crowd follower. So I kind of jump in, um, but immediately I just felt this is good. This is special. But even still, like I'll go home sometimes and I'll just be like, uh, you know, really, like I think is this real? Are we just letting this linger? And yeah, like students maybe are taking advantage of it, or I mean, everyone in the Asbury community knows that revivals have happened here before. And it's like, all right, we get to finally, because every year students come in and they're like, this is going to be the year, right? And you kind of roll your eyes and, maybe. But like, yeah, so like wondering, are we just finally, we can say, 2023, we got another one under our belt. But very quickly, just the Spirit checks me on that, and just reminds me of testimonies I've heard or things that I have seen with my own eyes of, reconciliation, confession, repentance, seen healings, that He's just doing a mighty thing. On the ground here with some students. Yeah, I mean, so I just came out of a class with a professor friend of mine. We were just processing with some students, and one of the girls shared she comes from a Lutheran background, where they don't talk about revival. And she was in chapel. She said she zoned out the entire time. She didn't pay attention at all in chapel. Left chapel when she was dismissed, and started getting text messages, asking her to come back, or like, hey, you should really check this out. And at first she's like, no, you guys just do your thing, like whatever. Then she's like, finally, it was really peer pressure that got me to go back. And she said, I just walked in there and just immediately, she's like, I just began weeping and crying. And what I thought I'd be there for 15 minutes, and it turned into like 2 hours. And then she just knew immediately, like there was something going on. And then she gives this testimony of how for all her life, she had like some kind of curvature on her spine, where she has actually shrunk an inch. Always gives her troubles. And after her time of prayer, there she stood up, and that curvature is gone. And it's like, yeah, like this can only be God.
Yeah.
Your doctors said you will have this the rest of your life. Nothing we can do.
How would you?
Yeah.
How would you say, like, because this is going out the 22nd, Dave?
Yeah.
So this is our podcast that dropped today was about technology and kind of like the good and the bad that can come from it. And it seems like so much of this, I don't think any of the other Asbury revivals happened during technology time, smartphone time. So what do you see as the like good, but maybe some of the dangers of having, a phone camera in everyone's pockets that is experiencing this?
Yeah, I mean, the good of it for sure is, I think God is. I mean, I can't think of a situation like this that has happened during, with our phones in our pockets, right? Of social media time. So I think the good is that social media is allowing this to get out, making us aware to the masses like that very quickly. And we're seeing the results of that, where Wilmore is now flooded with people. I think the bad is that everyone now can share their opinion, and share what they think about this, and it becomes hard for those of us on the ground who are used to scrolling Twitter, and Facebook and Instagram, and seeing that.
When usually they have no idea what Wilmore, Kentucky is.
Right.
Yeah, seeing people make these claims and say, well, if it's true revival, it will have this or that or whatever. Like that can be discouraging and hard, and also make you question, like, yeah, are we just manufacturing this? But again, you just get back to you. So then you just put your phone away and start listening to people.
Yeah.
And watching what's happening.
Yeah, even from where I'm at, like some of the people who I follow on the various social media, who have made their way down there, some as skeptics, who just want to check it out, others as just like happy, rejoice with those who rejoice, but going in optimistic, but no one that I know has gone in and come back and been like, yeah, this is a sham. This is a load of
Right.
crap. Like
Yeah.
even those who go in kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen, but just want to like see it for myself, are like, okay, I still don't know that I can explain it, but like, that was special. there's something going on there. So, so yeah, that is cool. And there's got to be this tension. Not even there's got to be. There is. I'll speak for people who I shouldn't be speaking for. There is a tension there of like, we have this special thing that happened unorchestrated among students that now you said, by a good estimation, 4,000 people in seats last night in a town of what, 6,000 people?
6,000.
Yeah. So like it's not 4,000 people from Wilmore that are filling up those seats. So, you got a lot of people coming in from the outside. I know I've seen just like some big names that like, if you were to try to manufacture a revival, you would invite them to come and speak, and who have just gone and have not been platformed. They've just gone and experienced it. Some big names of people who I would never invite to be a part of my revival, who have gone, who also have not been platformed. And so there's so much tension, and like there's this special holy thing happening, but also like we're not called to worship in a chapel for the rest of our lives, right? So there's got to be something else, and some of that critique is I'll tell you what the something else is and go and do this. But even like you said, Josh, on Sunday, I think like you're wrestling with that tension of, I want to be here, and when I'm not, I feel like I'm missing something, but like I have a family and I also need sleep, and the
Holy Spirit's not doing my laundry for me.
right. And and if I'm allowed to bring it up, the Eagles were in the Super Bowl and whatever. So all of that. But anyway, so like, I don't know. How are you dealing with that tension? And are there conversations happening amongst the students of like, what is the next step? What do we want to see happen because of this?
Sure. So, and then there's a couple different layers of this. I'll talk about the students in a second, but I do want to just say, I mean, our leadership, I mean, I was just talking to a couple people over lunch. I mean, they are top notch and they are so being so wise, and Jesus is helping them so much. So yeah, those any of those guys who are coming this way hoping to get platformed, save the money. It's not going to happen. But they are praying and began praying very quickly that this be something that God really wants to spill out into our local churches across the nation, onto our campuses across the nation. And so, I mean, the first ones to really start flocking here from outside the immediate community were college students. I think there was about a dozen or 2 dozen colleges represented on one of the first couple of nights. And so they were very quick to say, whenever you feel released from this place, can we commission you? Can we send you out? And not necessarily so that you can go replicate the same thing, in your auditorium, but that God would do a new thing on your campus through you. God has met you here in a powerful way. Could God want to do a new thing? And so one of the overnights that I did, I walked in at 2 a.m, and 2 girls from Indiana Wesleyan came up to me and said, "Hey, we're driving back now. Would you pray over us?" And so just the blessing to be able to pray over them and send them out in the name of Jesus, and pray that Jesus would do a new thing on the campus of Indiana Wesleyan. They're doing that for pastors. They're telling pastors, like, if you've come and you brought your people, like, pray with them, be there with them, and then when you're ready to go, let us pray over you. Let us send you out, because we want to remind everyone that thing you were wrestling with, Dave, the other night, of that God is not limited to Hughes Auditorium. God wants to do this everywhere. When our kids are puking in our Sunday morning worship services, in our offices. He wants to do this everywhere. He wants to meet you and reveal himself everywhere. So that has been a message that is just constantly going out. When it comes to the students, there is a lot of tension in their hearts right now of God met us. This was really special. And now we're under invasion of people.
Yeah.
Like there's thousands of people now who have descended on our home, right? They're in our seats. They're in our kitchens. Thankfully, they're not in our bedrooms, and we're working very hard to make sure that doesn't happen. But they're in our place. And so part of them want to say, God can meet you anywhere. Like, just go, go home. But the other side is they realize it's our chance to be good hosts and to welcome them and to steward this and to let them, hopefully meet with the living God and then to send them out. And so I was with a small group of students last night, and just reminding them, like, you're going to get your campus back. You're going to get Hughes Auditorium back. We don't know when, but it's going to happen. And right now, could Jesus be asking us to live out what we really want these ones to do? And that's, maybe I can't go to my favorite spot in Hughes Auditorium anymore, but Jesus can meet me in my dorm room. Jesus can meet me in my classroom. Jesus can meet me when I go up to the gym. Like, that we have to discipline ourselves to live this out, that it's inconvenient. We're being inconvenienced right now, but God can still meet with us in the hopes and prayer that that's what everyone's going to take away with them.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. And I'm excited for you guys that are experiencing it. I'm excited to hear the stories that come from this and are happening now. I know you said you were able to bring students to, was it a local like
a retirement community.
Yeah, to share about what's going on with the members there. So, already I think what we see on social media is a lot of the worship service, which is good and cool and great, and like, let's do that. And I think it's easy for us to be like, oh, okay, great, like, you're worshiping around the clock, that's fantastic, but like, why don't you go and do something about it? But people are doing stuff.
It's happening.
You're not live streaming, a bunch of college students talking to older folks about a move of the Spirit, but that stuff is happening. And so the message is being brought out to the disenfranchised, to the disinherited. And so that's exciting stuff that, I very much feel and understand the pull towards skepticism and cynicism. But I'm excited to rejoice with those who are rejoicing and hear what God is, all that God is going to bring out of this. And I think for those listening, like, yeah, God can meet you where you're at. God is there already. And so you can experience community or communion with God right now. So yeah, awesome stuff. All right. It wouldn't be a gospel according to if we didn't have a terrible transition of serious talk into a game. You got a couple more minutes for us?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. So I think this episode is going to be called "The Gospel According to Revival?" ? And so it's the question mark episode. So the game is called Revive It, and I'm going to give you something from past Christian culture.
Okay.
And you are going to tell me if we should revive it or just leave it dead. Okay. All right. We're going to start with, we're in a time of reboots and bringing stuff from the past back to life on the screen. McGee and Me, revive it?
No. Let McGee stay dead or wherever he is.
Now, because it wasn't ever good in the first place, or because you want it to stay what it was?
I do have quasi fond memories of it, and I don't want to be reminded or be learn how terrible it actually really was.
That's fair. How about you, Dan? Are you reviving McGee and Me?
I was never a McGee and Me.
We talked about that on one of the episodes.
So So yeah, no, bring the gritty live action reboot. I want to see it. Pure video,
Yes.
make it happen.
Yes, McGee and Me is actually just like the McGee, the fictional character in the boy's head is just like leading him to do terrible things, I guess, in the gritty remake. How about DC Talk? All three members are still out making music, but
It's called
seem to have
Newsboys now.
Right. Newsboys are audio adrenaline, I think.
But what do you think? Should we revive it?
I want a reunion. I do. I have to confess.
Yeah, and put it on a cruise line.
Yeah, exactly.
The Jesus Freak Tour. We're probably approaching what, like the 30th anniversary of that album? It's got to be coming close.
I'll be there.
I want to get down with the DC talk.
That's right.
Down with the DC talk. All right. How about WWJD bracelets? Should we revive them?
Yeah, I'm still cool with what Jesus would do.
Yeah, I think I'm a fan of anything. Well, I'm a fan of most things that lead to a conversation. And I think WWJD definitely did that at a point in time. People have different feelings on the Super Bowl commercials. But I'm a favor of different things that will lead to a conversation. Like we sometimes with our youth group t-shirts for retreats and stuff, we'll put something on it that I hope that would provoke a conversation between the students and their friends of like, what does that mean? Or where'd you get that shirt? Or why do you and this other person have the same shirt? It's like, oh, we went on a retreat and this is what happened. That like it would lead to those further conversations, and anything that can be a conversation starter that leads to talking about Jesus, I think can be a good tool.
Is that why you're wearing your Reese's shirt, but it says Jesus?
Yeah. Catch up with Jesus.
How about Christian like scare houses, like haunted houses, but like with a gospel presentation at the end?
Is this actually a thing?
What do you mean revive it? These are happening right now, Dave.
They're still happening?
Over Halloween, I had stories on youth group memes of people telling me that it was this is what their church puts on this huge production of this is what hell will be like, and it's basically like a haunted house, like, but this is what hell will be like, and at the end that.
So we're not. I guess the question isn't revive it. The question is kill it.
Yes.
Should we do away with these once and for all? I had heard stories. I feel like it's like what's like the Rapture movie from like the 70s, Thief in the Night or something like that.
We'll be watching it probably at like Gloucester.
Yeah, I feel like I thought when like that movie came out, and like I thought that was like the era of these scare houses, but apparently some of them are still running strong.
Unfortunate.
Good for them, I guess. Something else that's probably still happening in some circles, but not in ones I walk in anymore. Making students street evangelize for a grade.
No, I don't think making part and the for a grade. No, that does need to come back. We do need, I think, to continue to encourage our students to find any means possible to share our faith. I don't want to shy away from that, but let's not attach it to a grade.
All right. What would the grade be if they did it or if they were successful? How many conversions did you get?
Extra credit if you got
2.
Yes.
C. That's a C.
Yeah. How about we kick it ancient church style. Commitment to the nonviolent ways of Jesus. Should we bring that back?
Let's do that.
How about Christianity submitting and subverting the government instead of trying to leverage it for power? Yeah.
Jeez. Wow.
All right.
What a turn, Dave. What a turn.
I'll just leave you guys with those to think about. But Josh, thanks for joining us, shedding some light on what's happening at Asbury. We'll continue to pray that God uses it in big ways.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's exciting.
Thank you all for listening to The Gospel According to, and make sure you follow us all over the place on social media so that if revival breaks out at at our house or while Dan and I are recording, we can let you all know about it.
We'll just let the live stream roll.
We're at TGAT Podcast on all of those places. Share the podcast, please. Help us grow an audience. We would appreciate it. Even those who are cynical about revival, you can share it with them, and maybe we'll
even
change
those
their
that don't
hearts.
like Ale 8. You can.
Oh man,
share with them.
come on, Dan.
Yes, this podcast brought.
I'm not one of them. I'm just saying you could share the gospel according to with those people.
Yes.
I'm hoping everyone leaves town with an L8 in their hand, or two. Give one to a friend.
Yes, that's the real success. That would be the success story. All right, you guys know the rest of our ending here.
Send us an email.
Send us an email, tgatpod, gmail.com. 5-star rating and review. Make sure you do it. And this was the gospel according to revival.
Revival?